Hey guys, King of Charmanders here, and today we are featuring triple Generation 1 starters, basically the OGs, the childhood memory of yours, or something you went back with you went back in time to like buy red and blue and then play them if you are of the younger generation. As you see here, we have triple Kanto starters in Open Ultra League. Now, triple Kanto starters, I got the idea from, like, you know what? Community moves are pretty overpowered. And as you see here, like, I'm not using Dragon Breath Charizard. I am also using just a perfect Blastoise. I don't have an XL Blastoise. I don't want to build one. I could probably do it, but I'm not going to build one for the purpose of this video. As you see here, we have a Hundo Blastoise, 2 good IV Charizards, and, well, a decent IV Charizard, and a good IV Venusaur. As you see here, they all have the Community Day moves. They're all double moved. I actually haven't tinkered with any of these. They basically have been built for a while. I have just been sitting here. So, the Community Day moves are very, very powerful. I think they do a lot better in Open Ultra rather than Ultra Premier because there's less electric types in Open Ultra League. So, for this team, we're going to have Charizard in the lead. We're going to have Blastoise and Venusaur in the back. Charizard, in my opinion, has the best leads for this team because it's able to beat things like Articuno. It does resist the Charmers, and you have play against things like Cresselia, as well as Giratina. But you still can lose the lead against things like Swampert, etc. So we're going to see what we can do about that. But anyways, a fun little team to use. I actually do very well with this team, and they're all legend battles. So all these battles are in the 2,900 to 3,000 elo range. So I'm either gatekeeping someone, or I'm fighting a fellow legend with a triple Kanto starter team. Also, Charizard is the best one out of all of these starters. It has like the most expensive. It has one of the most expensive cards in the world. And it's seriously, it's the GOAT. Like there's no argument. Blastoise and Venusaur are cool, and I like them a lot, but you know what? They're not as cool as Charizard. That's fact. And not as expensive either. That's why everybody wants Holo Charizard and base like Charizard, and nobody wants Blastoise or Venusaur. Charizard's GOAT. That's all you need to know. Alright, here's the pvpoke.com team builder analysis. This is a great tool to determine your weaknesses and strengths in whatever league you're in. And as always, if you'd like to consider, please donate pvpoke.com. As you hear, we have Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur. I do lead with Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. So the problem is this team doesn't really have a great save switch option. Like, you don't really bank on winning lead, but you try to do something fancy if you lose the lead. Does that make sense? As you see here, Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, it's not a very, it's not great. So you do have decent coverage. As I mentioned, you don't really have a safe switch, so it kind of sucks. It is extremely consistent, though. The reason being is Community Day moves are really overpowered, and they do a ton of damage, so that's why it's really consistent. It's going to deal a ton of damage, and it doesn't have a great amount of bulk. Well, that's mainly due to Charizard. So Blastoise and Venusaur are decently tanky, especially if they do have resistances against what it's up against. Charizard does as well, however, it really depends on what Charizard is facing. For example, if Charizard is facing Cresselia, it can eat a couple of Moonblast, I believe 2 Moonblast before it goes down, or 3 Grass Knots. So you do have some play against some of the meta picks. However, this team is very rough because, as you see here, as far as the Metascore card goes, Giratina Alter destroys your back row. Charizard can be Giratina Altered in some situation, and so can Blastoise if you're able to land Ice Beam or Dragon Claw. However, Venusaur does effectively get walled by Giratina because Ghost resists Poison and Dragon resists Grass, so you're really rough if you get Venusaur locked into Giratina. As you see here, it actually doesn't do too bad against a lot of top meta picks. Against if you lead against Swampert, it's going to really suck though, because it's very, as Swampert's charges very, very quickly, and Earthquake does a ton of damage. It's going to beat you if you lead against it with Charizard, and unfortunately, like I mentioned, Blastoise, as tanky as it is, Swampert does outpace it very decently. Unless you lock it into Venusaur, then you could take down Swampert very well. Registeel does get eaten by Blastoise and Charizard, so if you do get a Steel lead, it's looking pretty good. However, not so much against Melmetal, because Melmetal does have Rock Slide, so you might have to be a little bit careful with Charizard. As I mentioned before, you do have some strong matchups against Cresselia. That's if Cresselia does have Grass Knot and Moonblast. Charizard and Venusaur only beat Cresselia really good if it doesn't have Future Sight. If Cresselia does have Future Sight will do a ton of damage against Charizard, and it will yeet Venusaur to the next dimension. Also, Venusaur, if it does have Grass Knot, is going to beat Blastoise pretty hard, so you have to be very careful. But as I mentioned before, against other things, Articuno you do very well. You do milk Articuno with Charizard, and Blastoise has a good chance against it. Against Giratina Origins, as you see here, you do beat it with Charizard. However, you have to be careful because Giratina Origin does have Shadow Ball. If it lands Shadow Ball, it's going to hurt Charizard a lot. Probably will KO at a certain range. And as you see, you do beat a decent amount of the rest of the meta. Against Machamp, as you see here, you do beat a lot of leads with Charizard. So we do beat a lot of majority of the leads with Charizard, as you see here. And it's very decent. Now, your potential threats are not very common, actually. So, in Open Ultra League, you are weak against Gengar, unfortunately, because Gengar is very spammy. It's also very powerful. As you see, you don't really have anything that destroys Gengar, like, convincingly. And you don't want to line it up against Venusaur because it does resist Venusaur with its poison typing. It will resist your Sludge Bombs. It will resist Frenzy Plant as well. So, you don't want Venusaur locked into Gengar. The rest of the things except for R and Mewtwo, you do very well against. As you see, you beat Lucario, Zapdos. As you see, you don't really see a lot of Lucarios. You don't see a lot of Zapdoses, Magnezone, Dripplin, Toxic, or Mutts. So it's actually, this seems actually pretty safe against the meta. So you can do really well. The only big weakness against it, like I mentioned, is you don't really have a good safe switch. As you see here, this team resists a lot of typings, and it's not weak to a lot of typings. However, like I said, it's very difficult. As you see here, this team can hit a lot of typing, so you do double it has a great offense. That's why it has consistent damage output. But like I mentioned, you have to be a little careful against some picks because, like I mentioned, you don't really have a true safe switch with this team. It's really cool, but like I said, you don't really have a true safe switch. So if you lose lead, you have to be a little fancy. All right, so here we have our first match. As you see, most of these are almost all legend battles. I think I do have like 2 gatekeeping matches. But we get Charizard into a Scizor. This is a great lead for us because they're double weak to fire. We get a Machamp. I'm going to switch into Venusaur right away. This is an ideal situation for us because Venusaur does resist counters and most of everything this Machamp has to throw at us, especially if it is a payback Machamp. Now, to get a move through, they let Frenzy Plant through. As you see here, this is definitely a payback. I think I counted wrong, but I wanted to see how much damage it does, and that did a lot more than I actually thought. But we're going to get to another Frenzy Plant here. I think the idea I had was that, okay, Scizor is going to come back in, and it double resists everything I have to throw at it except for Sludge Bomb. So, I'm just going to let it go and farm down with Charizard. As you see here, we got Charizard back in. This is likely a Night Slash. So I'm going to let it go. Won't do a lot of damage, but Charizard isn't the thickest boy in the world. We get to switch into Giratina. This is trouble for us because it does resist most of everything I have except for Dragon Claw and for Blastoise's Ice Beam. So I'm going to switch back to Blastoise and see we're just going to pew-pew our way to victory. Now, I still have 2 shields. Blastoise is a very tanky mon, even if it's not an XL. As you see here, mine is a perfect, and it's at level 40, as I mentioned before. We're just going to let 2 Dragon Claws go, then I'll shield the rest. This is really up to what my opponent shields, because they still have 2 shields too. So, I'm going to fire a Hydro Cannon, attempt to bait, because Hydro Cannon takes less energy. So, we do grab a bait, which is great, because I really need all this extra energy. And then we're fire another Hydro Cannon. So the thing is here, yes, I'm going to go, yes, they caught it, but I'm going to undercharge, as you see here, and I'm going to try to send in Charizard. I'm frantically sending in Charizard for extra energy, and we send it in at the right time, so that we can farm down the Scizor and get all the, and take this match, because my opponent's pretty dead right now. I have 2 shields, and I have a Charizard with energy. I should be able to get another Dragon Claw, that, or I still have Blastoise. So, we're gonna, as you see, we get a Fire Spin through. So, with that Fire Spin, I should only take 1 more Fire Spin, block this one, and then we're going to hit the Dragon Claw, and this should be GG. This would be GG's. As you see here, pretty good match. We kind of RPS'd our opponent, not really, because Giratina back is actually very bad for this team because it resists everything except a few charge moves I have. Well, 2 charge moves to be exact. So that was a great match. As I said before, like, this team's actually pretty good. Like, if you line it up correctly, it can do pretty well as a triple starter team, just because the Community Day moves are so powerful. As you see, we get a second legend for our second match. We get Cresselia into Charizard. This is pretty great for us if this is a Moonblast Grass, not Cresselia. That's a big if. As you see here, I'm not going to shield the first move. This should be a Moonblast. It is. My opponent's going straight for the debuff. I hit the Blast Burn, and I'm going to go straight for it. If they don't shield, it's great. If they shield, it's alright. We get shield advantage. As you see here, my opponent is still going for... My opponent's likely going to go for another Moonblast here. Unless they go for Future Sight, which would really suck. And as you see, it's another Moonblast. So we're in farm down range, but they catch our Blast Burn like a boss. The good thing is it's a Swampert. So all I have to do is send in Venusaur. And I'm going to farm down this Swampert with Venusaur. And we're just going to throw all this energy we have at whatever's in the back. I'm going to shield here. I don't want to take an Earthquake because I believe I want this, like, Venusaur to be as healthy as possible. Venusaur is somewhat tanky in Ultra League, so I want all this energy, and I believe I can use it for whatever's in the back. We know there's a Cresselia, so there has to be something else. They send Cresselia back in, so I'm going to Frenzy Plant, and I'm just going to throw all this energy. Now I overcharge just a little bit, expecting this Frenzy Plant to KO, and as you see here, it does not. So, this thing gets another move, but because my opponent's been firing Moonblast Night tomorrow, this is another Moonblast. As you see, I resist it, and they send in Obstagoon. And we're going to just throw another Frenzy Plant. We do resist this Obstagoon's counter, so we're in a great position right now. I hit the Frenzy Plant, do chip damage, and out comes the Blastoise. Blastoise goes pew pew, and pew pews down this Obstagoon. Now we have a lot of control over this match. We still have 2 Pokemon. I still have a possible sack with Charizard. I still have a Venusaur that's pretty healthy. Can take another Night Slash if it wanted to. Or a Moonblast or anything from that Cresselia if Cresselia doesn't have Future Sight. As you see here, we're just going to go for the Hydro Cannons. We need to break this last shield. And now I'm going to expect my opponent to sack because they still have Cresselia alive. The timer should be up. I'm going to shield this last Night Slash here, and I'm expecting my opponent to sack. That's why I'm tapping at the bottom right, as you see here. I just keep on tapping. Cresselia goes down, and then we have the energy for the Hydro Cannon, and then it's GG's. As you see here, we had a lot of control. We didn't really have a lot of control over this match, because if this Cresselia had Future Sight, we would have been in a lot more trouble than we would have been there. So, as you see here, we take the W. Very good match. GG's to my opponent. Good catch with them on a Swampert, but it's very unfortunate for them because we did have Venusaur. Venusaur getting locked into a Swampert is always a good thing if you're the one with the Venusaur. So we get another match here. As you see, we get Charizard into Machamp. This is okay. I particularly don't like the Machamp matchup just because if they're running Rock Slide, it sucks. As you see here, they do bait me with Cross Chop. I was counting, however, they did go to Rock Slide, and as you see here, we managed to get a Fire Spin through, and they call our Blast Burn, so our opponent's doing very, very well right now. I'm just going to go straight for Dragon Claw, because if Dragon Claw does go through, I should be able to farm down. I'm going to eat the second one, because I think at this point, I'm like, alright, you know what, if you fired Cross Chop, then this must be a payback Machamp. I fire Dragon Claw, I do manage to get the shield, which is great, and now my opponent's going to try to take me out with this I think this is another Cross Chop, to be honest with you, and it is another Cross Chop. Now, we actually don't get the Dragon Claw, which really sucks, because it would have been really sweet to have all that energy. I'm not going to shield this, because this is definitely another Cross Chop. My opponent is definitely firing way sooner for a payback. They should be able to not get another Cross Chop or a payback off, and we get an Articuno into Venusaur. This is actually really bad for us. As you see here, I fire the Frenzy Plant, which is actually a huge mistake, because it is resisted, and we get a Togekiss in the back. The good thing is, in this matchup, Blastoise actually does really well because we have Ice Beam. So we're going to Ice Beam down this Togekiss, and then we're going to farm it down with all this Pew Pew power we have. And we still have a shield against this Articuno. And we also resist these Ice Shards because we're a Water type. So this is great. I'm vibing right now, and all I'm doing is shooting all these Water Guns and these Hydro Cannons at this Articuno. This should be GG's. We still have a shield, even if they are, their only win con is basically if I try to be really ballsy and I don't use my shield, which obviously we're not gonna do. We're already handicapped enough. This guy's got like what? Okay, you got a Machamp, you had an Articuno, and then you had a Togekiss. So you had a Tap and you had a Legendary. So I'm not showing any chill for this battle. We're gonna fire the Hydro Cannon. Even if this is debuffed, this should KO because Hydro Cannon is so powerful, and that's GG's. As you see here, so far we faced pretty meta teams with like full legendary teams, and Triple Kanto's starter team is going ham in Open Ultra. This is really awesome. This team, I thought about using Dragon Breath Charizard. However, Fire Spin, I'm like, you know what? If they're rocking Scizor like you saw in one battle, then we could do very well. Now we're moving on to the next match, and we get Jolly Marant. So we're gatekeeping here, or attempted gatekeep. So this is going to be really interesting. So far, I've won all 3 of my matches, so let's see if we could take another one. And we get an Ampharos. This is very bad for us. I don't know why there's an Ampharos in Open Ultra League, but as you see here, it is a viable pick because, we're in the right league, because I thought I went into Ultra Premier. I'm like, Ampharos, wow, why? So we get a Articuno, so I definitely know I'm in Open Ultra, and my opponent decided to lead with Ampharos. This is very bad for us. Ice does beat Grass, and as you see here, it does heavy damage. I'm going to try to get another Sludge Bomb off, but even though if I do fire this Sludge Bomb off, my opponent doesn't really care because, as you see here, it doesn't do a lot of damage. We're going to come back in with Charizard. We're going to attempt to get as much farm as we can, but we're going to get hit with another Icy Wind. So this is really going to suck. As you see here, we're debuffed. They have a lot of control in this match. Even though we have a strong matchup with Charizard, unfortunately, Articuno is able to debuff it, and Articuno is very tanky. And Charizard is not. As you see here, I switched to try to take out the Articuno with Water Gun, which was kind of a dumb move because it was still it had the energy. And unfortunately, this Ampharos actually beats Charizard and Blastoise and outpaces us really hard because Blastoise doesn't have a really good charging move. Water Gun does do a ton of damage over time, however, it doesn't charge a ton of energy. So this is pretty much GG's. Well, unfortunately, we got the one match that has an Ampharos. Now, Ampharos can be really good in Open Ultra League, however, not so much with the fact that you have things like Cresselia and you have things like Giratina running around. Also, you also have Swampert running around too, so it's very ballsy to bring it, especially in the lead. I see what they're doing here, though, because Ampharos can catch those Articunos, those Togekisses. What else can catch? It actually does very well against Scizor and against other picks as well. So this is a very, very, very good thing for our opponent. So we'll see what we have let's see what we have here. Unfortunately, we cannot take out this Ampharos. It is going to take us down because it beats us really hard. So they won the lead and they beat us in the closer. I couldn't come get realignment back or switch back. And even if I did, it'd be really rough because Venusaur is the only thing that can handle Ampharos. For our final battle, we get another legend, Rudukes. As you see here, we get a Ho-Oh, which is, I actually have no idea how this matchup goes. The thing about Incinerate, it charges very, very quickly. However, I do know my opponent has Earthquake. So because Charizard is a flying type, we should resist these Earthquakes. As you see, I'm going to go straight Dragon Claw. Blast Burn is resisted, but I'm going to try to time my attacks right because you don't want Incinerate going through a charge move because it's really going to suck. As you see here, they beat me perfectly. Charizard is not a tanky boy, so I don't want to get hit with a Brave Bird. We're going to hit as many Dragon Claws as we can. I managed to sneak a Fire Spin through, and we do grab a shield for our opponent. As you see here, we get another Dragon Claw, so we're just going to Dragon Claw, spam, 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 and hopefully we are able to take out this. Oh, and unfortunately we did not. It's a lot bigger than I thought. So I switch out, and unfortunately I do eat a Brave Bird, which really sucks, because I was like, oh man, I thought I would catch an Earthquake, and I did not. So, unfortunately, we don't get that. We don't catch the Earthquake. We catch a Brave Bird, and as you see here, we're in a pretty rough position. They do win switch, even though we did heavy damage with our Hydro Cannon. This should be a Drill Run or a Mega Horn. I can eat it with Charizard, and we're going to farm down. So, Excavalier is double weak, thankfully, so we do farm down, but we know our opponent has something. We still have that Ho-Oh to come out. And they managed to get a move off. This really sucks because this is probably a Brave Bird. Yep, it's a Brave Bird. So, I'm going to try to farm down here and throw all this energy I have at whatever's in the back. And unfortunately, it's a Melmetal. We're going to bait because one of my win is literally to bait here. And we do get the bait. Unfortunately, our opponent does not get the farm down. And we're going to Blast Bird. This should KO if I'm correct. And we do. GG's big Melmetal. This would have sucked if Melmetal was against my Venusaur, because it does resist everything my Venusaur has thrown. Luckily, we got to the Blast Burn, and then we managed to fry this poor little Lugnut, or overpowered Lugnut, in Open Ultra, and we GG'd. As you see here, we went 4-1, which is pretty awesome. I never expected to go 4-1 in Open Ultra, especially at Legend level battles, because I am at the 2900 to 3000 ELO, and we did very, very well. It's pretty nuts how powerful Kanto starters is in Open Ultra. GG's to all my opponents. That was... Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed those battles in the Shoutcast. Those were some pretty good battles. Again, they were pretty sweaty considering most of them were either... Well, pretty much all of them were Gatekeepers or, like I said, fellow Legend battles. And the teams I faced were pretty dang meta. So, this team does really well in Open Ultra, as it avoids a lot of electric typings. Literally the only match I lost was because I saw, like, the one Ampharos that's in Open Ultra League. But it still does very, very well, and I wouldn't recommend, if you aren't Legend yet, to use this team. This team isn't super effective as much as... The only problem is that Legendaries are so oppressive in Open Ultra League that unless you align things right, or if you play really well, this team probably won't get you a lot of W's. I did really well in this set, however, that's to say is, as I mentioned before, this team doesn't really have a safe switch. Blastoise and Venusaur aren't gate safe switches. There's a lot of things that can counter it. For example, if you get Blastoise locked into a Giratina, that's really bad. If you get Venusaur locked into an Articuno, as you saw in one of our battles here, that's really bad. And even Charizard doesn't have a dominant lead over a lot of other leads. It's just you have to play it well. I played Charizard for a little bit, so in Open Ultra, so I have a little bit of experience. That's why I did so well during those sets. However, like I mentioned, this team isn't particularly overpowered. It does well if you play it well and if you know your matchups. Other than that, like I said, I wouldn't use it to climb. It's a really fun team. If you're already Legend, I definitely recommend, you have these built, I definitely would give it a shot. You'll have a lot of fun. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be doing more fun teams like this in the future. Good luck in Go Valley sets, and I'll see you on the next video.